Welcome back to America's Forum right here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman.
And I'm J.D. Hayworth.
Do you have an obligation to pay the minimum wage to someone, to pay the minimum wage or overtime to someone who's an honest fixed salary and maybe working 60, 70, 80 hours a week? You know, the president believes that unless you're truly in one of these white-collar jobs, that employers should be paying attention to whether they're not actually meeting the duties of paying you the minimum wage, and that they should be required to pay you for the hours you work.
Well, that's Betsy Stevenson, a member of President Obama's Council of Economic Advisors. She's trying to explain the White House's push to expand overtime pay. Democrats say they want to help salaried workers like fast food managers. Those folks often work more than 40 hours a week, and they rarely get overtime pay. The proposed change is part of President Obama's effort to focus on closing the gap between the wealthy and the poor. That also includes a call to raise the federal minimum wage to more than $10 an hour, something he's already done through executive order for new government contractors. Now here's a little more information on the current state of overtime labor law. By law, workers earning less than 455 hours per week must be paid overtime. The George W. Bush administration set the $455 level back in 2004. Since then, it has not been adjusted to account for inflation. If inflation were taken into account, the threshold would now be $553 per week. The Labor Department first set the salary threshold at $250 per week back in 1975. Accounting for inflation, that figure today would be all the way up near $970 a week. Joining us right now is the president of Farr, Miller & Washington investment firm, Michael Farr. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, Michael, we went through the latest initiative. On one hand, you've got the minimum wage out there, but you also have this call to expand and increase overtime pay. Is this overtime pay issue politically a triangulation by the Obama administration? You had that huge minimum wage thing. This sounds like they're throttling back, but still trying to offer something for the alleged income disparity.
And Congressman, I think you're far more qualified to talk about the political positioning that the Obama administration is doing. It certainly seems that way. We're facing a period in our nation's history that really has only been seen once, and that was in 1929, when we've seen this concentration of wealth among the top 1% of holders. Now, that's not a political comment. That's just an economic fact. There's a whole lot of money in very few hands. And if you think economically about trying to get all of the water out of the Hoover Dam through a garden hose, you'll see that you really can only move so much water through a very narrow space. So if we take all the money and we put it just among top 1%, it doesn't move enough. It doesn't create enough velocity. And therefore, all of those many, many more people, that other 99%, or at least that middle 50% of the middle class, if they have more money, they spend more money, and that creates economic expansion and growth.
The question, of course, becomes how do you best ensure prosperity? And from my side of the aisle, we always warned you can't tax your way to prosperity. Now with the expansion of government and government taking over more of the pie, what does that mean for the private sector and legitimate job growth?
Well, it clearly is choking out legitimate job growth. It squeezes out new reinvestment and capital formation. I've written a new book called Restoring Our American Dream, The Best Investment. And I think that the American dream, that notion of hard work, self-sacrifice, tenacity, and talent that comes together that can achieve marvelous things in this country in a way that doesn't happen around the world, that's not only the foundation for our American ethos, that's the foundation of our economy. Because when people build those companies like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, not only do they create technology, but they create jobs, they create new employment, and money starts to build and our country grows.
Now let me follow up on JD's question, because on one hand you have taxes, but the other hand you have tax breaks. Now as a business owner, would it be better to incentivize raising wages and hiring more workers as opposed to trying to tax folks who earn a certain amount? Would that provide the incentive for business owners to create more jobs and pay people more?
The most favorable environment you can find for capital formation will be the best for our economy and will be the best for workers in the long run. To tell an employer that they have to raise the pay for everybody across the board at a Walmart, or people that don't make very big margins. Margins are not very big at Walmart. Grocery stores, for instance, operate on a 3% margin if you're lucky, you know? So to raise those wages is going to ruin their profitability, and they can't expand and they can't grow. So you really have to encourage that business formation. And if you want to see more business, you have to make it easier to do, not harder. We can't tax ourselves to prosperity.
Michael, let's take a look at the markets today. As we were discussing before coming on the air,
Yep.
what a drop of about 120 points on the market.
Yes.
And this has to do with Russia and the Ukraine, you believe?
It does. We've seen that Russian forces are beginning to move towards the Ukraine. We're seeing a lot of new Russian military action, and markets are not taking lightly to that. President Obama and Secretary Kerry have made it very clear that there will be economic sanctions. If they begin economic sanctions with Russia, that's a two-way street for Europe. Europe does a lot of two-way trading, right? There's another side of that coin with Russia that would also slow growth in Europe. And as you take a look at Russia and the entire area, and you get over to the Eastern Bloc, and of course in Central Europe, that would have an economic impact here, and our markets are showing the jitters.
And if it has an impact here, I would imagine much more so in Western Europe, in
Yes.
the UK and Germany, and those areas.
No question about it. Yeah, this is going to be a tough time. This Crimean Peninsula in the Ukraine has been absolutely essential to Russia's interests, to their naval military bases. There doesn't appear to be an easy way out of this, either for, I guess, Ukraine, Mr. Putin, or Europe, who wants to perhaps take a harder line.
Michael Farr, we appreciate your insight and analysis economically, geopolitically, and in so many other ways. It's great to have you.
Thank you. You're great to have me. Thank you.
After the break, we'll find out what you think about the stories we've been covering, and we'll have an update of breaking news. That's ahead. In the meantime, of course, you have a chance to contact us via social media. Tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum, or visit us at Facebook.com and by email, connect@newsmaxtv.com. Stay with us.